Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. Thanks for being patient with the last couple of days. I think we could still get Mitoryu against Kageyaki given Kageyaki's comeback, but where I assumed Hokuseiho would get stomped by Asanoyama and put his record quite close to Mitoryu's, now that matchup is looking less likely. As an aside, this is what frustrates people about Hokuseiho. If this is what he can do when he really puts forth an effort, where is this all the time? Was this basho about shuffling along to lull Asanoyama into a false sense of security when they inevitably met? It was a hell of a win, but in its way at least, absolutely freaking maddening. Anyway, today we've got a matchup that's going to make me tempt fate and say it'll happen for sure on day 10, Kiribayama and Wakamotoharu. Kiri leads the series 5-3. I hadn't realized they met a few times in their Makushita and Juryo days, but we'll go over their 5 top division matchups where Wakadu started strong before Kiri found a way to win the last 3. First up, Haru 2022.
若元春が圧力をかけました。上手霧馬山が組み止めました。ただ左半身若元春が力が出る格好です。右の上手霧馬山上手が遠い左からすくいます。タイナジからの強い若元春、ここから引きつける力を持っている若元春、ただ実力者の霧馬山左の半身まだ回しが引けない霧馬山。動きが止まりました。引きつける若元春、なんとかこらえました。左のすくい投げ霧馬山で煽って出ました。
Alright, we're starting out with a battle. Kiri comes in with hands up looking to strike high, while Waka leans left with right hand high and left low. The more of these you watch, the more you might wonder, why does somebody take their hands low or outside and let an opponent get inside without defending it? But it can force an opponent who comes in quickly to commit to an attack, which can be good for someone comfortable accepting the initial contact and defending until they're able to open an attack of their own. Kiri goes straight for the shoulders and neck, because that's really all you're trying to do with this sort of tachiai. Waka immediately plants his left hand on Kiri's chest and his right on Kiri's left arm, looking to control the position. If Kiri stays here, Waka is in a pretty good position to parry either arm at the very least. Kiri immediately shoves Waka back, trying to create space and free himself from Waka's defensive posture to find a better method of attack. However, Waka's right hand is firmly holding Kiri's left arm, and after the initial push-off, he uses that arm to pull himself immediately back in, pushing with the left hand now jammed into Kiri's armpit. Kiri instantly defends by making use of where his left hand is and grabbing Waka like a face hugger. He also clamps Waka's left hand while, more importantly, pushing his elbow in to destroy his pushing leverage. Despite this, Waka is able to slowly walk him backwards. In need of a new defense, Kiri pulls both hands back at once, pulls just enough on Waka's left hand to dislodge it when he pulls his shoulder away from it, and slaps in a new position with his left arm around Waka's back and his right hand back on Waka's left elbow. The hand on the elbow serves a different purpose now though, since Waka's left forearm is jammed up against Kiri's chest. He can't do much with it here, and Kiri would like to keep it that way. Let's also appreciate how Kiri was willing and able to move both hands in unison to improve his defense. A lot of guys want to keep one hand in place and only move the other one. Kiri pulls Waka in and gets his knee placed well under Waka's inner thigh, aiming for an Uwatanage finish. But look at Waka's right hand. He's got the belt, and given his foot position, he'll need it to defend. Kiri's got Waka's foot kicked out now, and his throwing position is pretty much exactly what he wants. But Waka's belt grip means he goes exactly nowhere, and now he's over top of Kiri. It looks pretty good for Waka, but underneath, Kiri is still locked onto that left elbow, so Kiri is at least defensively solid. They get into the sumo lean for a while, with little changing outside of Waka partially freeing his left hand to get around Kiri's back. Then, when Waka's left hand reaches for a double belt grip, Kiri immediately responds by pulling both arms down and jumping back into another attempted throw. Waka's right hand belt grip, though, is so tight that not only does the throw fail, but Kiri's the one left with one foot on the ground as he fails to achieve any throw leverage. Waka uses this advantage to drive up while Kiri recovers, but Kiri grabs hold of his left arm before he can land a belt grip in front. Kiri moves his hand back again, absolutely hellbent on getting this position. Left hand around the upper back, right hand on or around the left elbow to work. He's tunnel visioning on landing this technique, despite the fact that by now, Waka knows damn well what he's trying to do. Kiri steps back, but Waka doesn't even let him begin a third throw. They begin another positional dance. Oh, false alarm. They're no doubt quite tired by now, so they keep gathering their strength for what each hopes is a final drive. Waka pops forward, trying to jerk Kiri up by the belt to make him easier to move. But after once thwarting a throw attempt before it could start, now Waka just about jumps into one. I suppose he might not care because he knows his hand isn't letting go of that belt without surgery. Again, he tries to pop Kiri back. Again, Kiri tries to turn it into a throw. They circle, neither one wanting to blindly commit to another attack. Then Waka pops forward again, and we see how little it takes for defense to fail. He does it at the exact moment Kiri slides his left foot forward before Kiri's been able to adopt a better defensive posture. Kiri wants to make another throw attempt, but where his right foot had previously been in position without having to move, now he has to step back, which gives Waka a chance to bounce in again. He fully commits to holding on and going down with Kiri to end this fight, and we finish with a pancake slam, aka Yori Tayoshi. Sometimes this is how a sumo match goes, even at high levels. Two guys lock themselves into a single idea each, and eventually one of them has to work. Next up is Natsu 2022. Fair warning, this one is almost 2 minutes long.
切り番目変化、ここについていった若元春、左四つになりました。右の上手、若元春が先に攻めます。霧馬山はまだ上手が引けていません。若元春は下手はまだ、ただ右の上手を引いています。足も飛ばす霧馬山。左の半身になりました霧馬山。若元春、左の下手はまだ引けていない。突き落とし。霧馬山の左の下手、若元春の右の上手、これが命綱です。右から絞っている霧馬山。相手の左を使わせません霧馬山です。1分を超えています。頭をつけに霧馬山。上手は切れない霧馬山です。若元春の右の上手。先場所も最後物言いがつく際どい相撲になりましたこの両者。今場所は長い相撲。若元春が動く。下手は引けない。もう一度霧馬山。
Despite the length, it looked like it was going to be over quickly. Kiri certainly wanted it to be, trying to henka, but Waka catches him mid-leap. When Waka pops him backwards, Kiri immediately finds the rope to brace, but Waka gives him a good shot and has him balancing with his right foot against the rope and his left foot on it. He lands both hands on Kiri's midsection and rams his head into Kiri's chin. Kiri is doing exactly what he should, flexing his knees and dropping his weight forward as heavily as possible, but this should be the end of the fight. But Kiri lands his right hand on Waka's elbow and pulls, using the grip to both get Waka's hand off him and use Waka to hold himself in the ring. As we can see on the other side, he's also slipped his left hand under Waka's right arm, and now he has a hold around the back to keep himself in the ring as well. The reaction time necessary to pull this off is remarkable. Kiri twists to the right. His hand positioning is the same as it was when he kept trying to pull off the Uwatanage last fight, but in this case he's using it to just off-balance Waka and give himself an escape path. Now he does leap into throwing position, but once again Waka has that right hand locked into the belt. Kiri doesn't attempt the throw this time, instead leaping back and accepting a neutral position. I'm guessing Coach Michinoku got in his ear and told him to knock that shit off. In fact, as they maneuver, Kiri releases the left hand around Waka's back and grabs the belt. It looks like he might have worked a new trick into his tactics for the match. Waka's trying the same thing, bouncing Kiri back, and Kiri tries another throw to his right, this time holding the belt. Change comes one step at a time, I guess. This all goes nowhere, and they circle to the center of the ring, both well set defensively. Waka bounces forward yet again. This time Kiri is content to hold him in place. Kiri doesn't want to lose this foot position, but he also hasn't been able to turn it into a functional attack, so he tries to kick out Waka's leg. That doesn't work, so instead he decides that stepping to the side and doing it again is the play. And this time he makes solid contact, getting Waka's foot off the clay. But it avails him nothing. Low percentage attacks aren't a bad idea when you're not at much risk. You might have to get lucky for it to work, but if your opponent's not in a good position to counter it, there's little to lose. We on the outside might look at it like, yo, what are you doing? But unless you know you're the one who will run out of stamina first, it makes sense. Now Kiri attempts a very smart tactic. Waka's right hand on his belt has been the main thing thwarting him for a fight and a half, so he pulls hard to the left, letting go of his own belt grip and using that arm to smash Waka's hand free. But it doesn't work, and he quickly clamps his hand back onto Waka's belt. This is one of the primary reasons that in a static position like this, guys generally want to be the one making action happen. They know they're about to try something, so if it doesn't work, they can react more quickly to assert their previous position than the defender could if it did work. They hang out for quite a while until Kiri bends further forward, giving Waka very little ability to keep a hand on his back, and pulls it off, controlling the wrist. Waka tries to snatch it back, but Kiri hangs on. This is obviously not a position Waka wants to be in, but having his wrist held isn't terrible. Kiri's not going to pull him down by it, and in order to do anything else with that hand, he'll have to let go, at which point Waka will have it back to work with. Also, if you're wondering how ridiculous Waka's grip strength is that he can still hold onto the belt after all this time, I have no idea. It's not clear who starts this move. They twitch upwards on almost the same frame, but what matters more is that Waka gets his hand free and slips it under Kiri's right arm. Kiri goes from holding the elbow back to the wrist because he is going to be damned if he's letting Waka get that second hand on the belt. But after another lull in the action for the second straight fight, Waka pops forward as Kiri moves his left foot, taking away the split second Kiri needs to defend himself. By the time Kiri gets his right foot back, Waka is again too far in to be stopped, and the only difference is that Waka doesn't need to commit his entire body to the win. In short, from the first fight to the second, Kiri appeared to develop at least a small wrinkle in his game plan, but he still hasn't figured out how to stop Waka from running the fight long and eventually attacking at a moment where he can't defend it. Now for Nagoya, and we have a first in the preview series. It's a Torinahoshi! We get 6 fights for the price of 5! But let's go through this one before watching the second. Waka hasn't changed anything about his approach, so we see the same tachi-ai. Right hand high, left hand low, lean into the left. Kiri went in high at first and threw down a henka in the second fight. Now we get a tachi-ai that somewhat mirrors Waka's, but with his arms more extended. Again, being further forward means he strikes first, but is also more committed to his action. Waka seems very comfortable getting into the initial grapple and then figuring it out. But Kiri has made more than a positional adjustment. He attacks Waka's left arm immediately, jamming it inside and not allowing it to get close. We see here his left hand went high for the neck as it did in the first fight. He does the same push-off he tried then, but Waka's right hand is trying to grasp under his left arm, so he doesn't have the same grip to hold on with. Now they're free of each other's grasp, but as the aggressor, Kiri has the advantage. His right hand is already cocked and loaded while Waka is still pulling his back. Kiri whacks Waka across the jaw before Waka's right thrust can hit his shoulder. It's been all good so far, but unfortunately, just as Waka reacts by pushing his right hand against Kiri's face, Kiri's right foot slips. Waka damn near turns this into a very fortunate pushdown victory, but one hand isn't enough to get it done, and Kiri jumps his right foot forward to stabilize. Kiri knows full well by this point that he's not going to win with Waka on his belt, so he grips Waka's left forearm from underneath and wraps his left hand on Waka's head, bracing his elbow against Waka's collarbone to keep him from getting inside. Kiri transitions to an overhand clamp on each wrist. He steps back with his right foot, releasing Waka's right hand. Now that hand is coming directly for his belt, so Kiri better have a plan. He tries his third type of throw in 3 fights, and this time he's managed to do it just fast enough to keep Waka from getting hold of his belt. With Kiri controlling both arms, Waka's just holding on for dear life here, maybe hoping nothing breaks on landing. But somehow they touch down at what looks like the same nanosecond, and there's no other call but to do it again. Alright, let's watch the do-over.
この手突き、霧馬山、今回も突っ張る。右が入った霧馬山、振りほどく。おっと、頭を突き合う形になりました。回しを取って力が出る2人ですが、ちょっと珍しい格好になりました。突き落とす霧馬山、張った。こらえた若元春、左四つだ。霧馬山も力が出る左下手。互いに上手まだ。おっと、霧馬山は下手は手が離れている。右を巻き替えにいった。そこを若元春残した。右四つに変わった。上手が切れた若元春。霧馬山前回しだ。どうか今度はルンバ。
Given that Kiri clearly wants to avoid Waka getting on his belt, and Waka's arm coming underneath is a good way for him to do that early, we might expect Kiri to defend against it again. However, it seems like he's pretty much done with this shit and gets his hands after Waka's neck like a serial killer. Waka gets beat to the punch in every conceivable way and recoils backwards. Kiri gets his left hand back in Waka's face, and even though Waka has the presence of mind to return to his upward left hand push on Kiri's chest, Kiri's like, no you don't, and has now thwarted or dislodged Waka at every turn so far. Kiri jacks the chin back, but unlike some obbies, doesn't leave it there, tempting as that might be. He gets it out of the way, though to Waka's credit, he doesn't overextend when missing the defensive push. Kiri has outmaneuvered Waka all the way, but somehow Waka stays in the fight well enough to mirror face shoves. They clear each other out, and this is one of those situations where I think sumo is fun, when two wrestlers disconnect and have to figure out how to start wrestling again. Kiri whiffs with a left-handed defense, but just shoulder charges into Waka's embrace. Grasp. Each one reaches for the belt and wishes his fingers were an inch longer, then transition to Kiri grasping Waka's back as best he can with his right hand while Waka tries to control the arm while their opposite hands battle for control. So far, even though he lost his initial advantage, Kiri has still kept Waka off the belt, and that has to be a win. Now it's Waka's turn to adjust. Recognizing he absolutely does not want to be in a throwing position without that belt grip, he circles left and leaps away, giving up some space but getting Kiri's hands off him. Kiri's like, yeah, well, fuck you, slaps him in the face, darts in for the belt, then stops caring about the belt real quick as Waka reaches for his, jumping back out of range. Kiri's in a bit of a dilemma now. He's figured out how to keep Waka off his belt, but not how to maintain his own offense in the process. They battle for control on the sides, neither one wanting to move much lest he give his opponent an opening. When Waka pulls his left hand free, Kiri takes the opportunity to pop him in the grill, but this time thinks he can get away with the obby push and keeps his hand there. Predictably, Waka pulls Kiri's hand away, but using both hands to do it means they're both out of position when Kiri whirls around and attacks his shoulders. He shoves Waka back yet again, and has now landed so many slaps they'll have to test him for Takekeisho blood after the match. Kiri has more or less run this whole fight, and while Waka desperately pushes back to defend himself, it looks like Kiri's finally going to get him out. He loses this push when his hand slips off to Waka's left, but even then, he follows Waka's escape and shoves down on his head very effectively when he also has Waka's left arm locked in a clamp. Just looking at this still, you'd have to figure Waka is completely screwed. And yet, he's able to get his feet down just before Kiri hits another chokehold, which lets him skip back, slide, and stay standing through the shove. Kiri pushes yet again, switching to an underarm hold around the back. It's a grapple, but in this upright position, Waka's not nearly tall enough to reach over the top and get his belt, so Kiri is okay. But Waka's left hand sneaks in. He's got the belt. He's got the belt. Kiri's clamping the arm, but Waka's finally got the belt. Waka pulls a little Hokuseiho arm swing, and when the arm is loose, Kiri takes advantage by forcing his body to the left, something which would be much more difficult if Waka had been clamping the arm, and jams his hand inside of Waka's left arm. He immediately pulls down on Waka's right arm while scooping the left, trying to put Waka's belt grip to his own advantage for once. But he still can't get it done. Now Kiri is back against the rope, and what their top division meetings have shown us is that he still doesn't have a good answer for this position. He tries bending down and getting his hips back to extend Waka's arms. Waka has both hands on the belt now, which looks like it's just double doom for Kiri. But Waka actually does himself in with the tactic. With both hands on the belt, both arms are extended, so when Kiri spins to the left, there's no way Waka can maintain both hands on the belt. Yes, Waka still has one hand locked in, but with Kiri spinning towards it and Kiri having a clamp on it, he loses a lot of power with that arm. All he has is the grip. The grip is very effective, yes, and allows Waka to spin himself to face Kiri again, but Kiri pulls up on the belt with his left, sneaking his right hand in for an underhand grip. Now Waka is against the rope, and while this position is defensible, he decides to try the Waka special, using the rope as a pivot point and flipping his opponent out of the ring. It's just barely not enough. They didn't meet again until this year in what for them was a sprint.
突き放していく霧馬山、のど輪をつけ、こらえたがはたき込み、霧馬山。
For some reason, Waka seems to think that his normal tachiai is going to work, even though Kiri absolutely blasted it in their last meeting. Kiri, wisely, sticks with the same tachiai as the rematch in July, since Waka has shown no inclination to switch it up. He lands a push like last time, shoves Waka's head back like last time, but now claps his arms outside of Waka's and goes for the instant bulldozer win. Waka braces, but Kiri pushes like the only way to beat this guy is to snap his head off. Once Waka pushes off and drives forward, Kiri is experienced enough to know he's built up all the recoil he needs to launch him forward and go for a pushdown. And it works. Simple, effective, and without grappling. Kiri's been looking for this type of win. It's not the kind of thing you can easily repeat against good competition, though. And finally, we'll look at this past March.
頭で当たり合いました。少しはたいた送り出し、霧馬山の勝ち。
Oh, well, maybe you can repeat it against good competition. So how did this happen again? I mean, it wasn't quite the same. Kiri goes back to blocking Waka's left arm as it comes up, but this time Waka's ready for Kiri and immediately forces his left hand against Kiri's biceps so he can be the one to push first. Although their point of initial contact comes around the same spot, Waka is determined to not be the one on his heels. He gets his hand into Kiri's chest while grinding forward against the hand on his neck. Kiri manages to stop his progress after sliding about a foot back, but it's the second chin push and his weight behind it that sets up the recoil he needs. When Kiri steps out of the way, Waka slips and staggers forward, but as he's recovering against the rope, Kiri's hand is on his back. The push out is easy. Ironically, in an effort to stop Kiri from gaining the initial advantage, Waka walked into the exact same strategy that beat him in January and actually made it easier for Kiri to pull off. At this point, Waka's the one that needs to find some answers, but he doesn't seem willing to tread new ground to find them. This is the kind of thing that sets a guy a step behind his peers even when he often seems capable of matching them, the unwillingness or inability to try new tactics. He'll win more matchups against Kiri in the future, but unless he figures out how to do it without a belt grip locking him in against Kiri's offense, the win gap between them is only going to grow over time. That's it for day 10. Like it if you learned something, and I'll see you tomorrow.